Howdy, Dennis Bradford here. Let's think some about being, feeling, and doing better. How should we understand emotional awareness? Surprisingly, perhaps, answering this question correctly connects to spiritual development. Again, since I'm not a sage, I'm unqualified to be a spiritual teacher. However, since I've mastered it, I am qualified to teach emotional well-being. It happens that the same practices that work for emotional well-being also work for spiritual well-being, in other words, sagehood. It's just that having a personal calibration in the 500s is required for emotional well-being, whereas a higher calibration of 600 or over is required for sagehood. What does that mean? I've repeatedly discussed in the videos in this playlist the log energy scale of human consciousness, from 1 to 1,000, where 200 indicates empowerment and 600 indicates sagehood, that was developed by David R. Hawkins, MD, PhD. If your personal calibration is lower than you'd like it to be, the good news is that you can raise it by learning and using a classic spiritual practice, such as Zazen or aliveness awareness. See videos number 9 and 11 in the Stress Reduction Wizardry playlist. The most popular reason for learning one is that we've become dissatisfied with the quality of our emotional lives. How, though, are we aware of our emotions? Emotions arise naturally as we go through life. They're normal. How does awareness of them arise? In video number 13, we saw that all emotions have a bodily component. Emotions are more powerful than beliefs because when we have an emotion, we actually feel it in our bodies. Mere beliefs don't pack that kind of punch. Is the body aware of emotions? No. The body is insentient. It's aware of nothing. It has no awareness. Our bodies are physical skin bags full of bones, flesh, and fluids. There's no awareness in them. Bodies don't experience themselves. They don't experience anything. Your stomach, for example, doesn't know it exists or that it experiences stomachness. So, when you experience an emotion, it's not your body that experiences it. You're able to be aware of an emotion by sensing it. Suppose, for example, that you just learned that someone stole one of your valuable possessions. For example, I once had my Harley-Davidson motorcycle stolen, and upon learning of it, I immediately felt a kind of sickness in my stomach. That feeling was the sensation or feeling of my body reporting an emotional upset. Are sensations aware of emotions? No. Feelings or sensations themselves are mental rather than physical objects, but they're objects we become conscious of, and they are not themselves awarenesses. You may believe that sensations are caused by bodily changes, in other words, physical changes that occur in the body, such as vibrations or the firings of nerve cells, but feelings are not themselves conscious of anything. Is the mind aware of emotions? Yes, that's where we may become aware of the sensations that are parts of emotions, as well as of the two beliefs that always accompany sensations that constitute emotions. We have all three components in mind whenever we experience any emotion. Sometimes we just find ourselves being aware of an emotion, of having it in mind. Do minds experience themselves? It seems a strange question, but its answer is important. No, minds don't experience themselves. What is a mind? A mind is a collection of forms that we're conscious of. In addition to sensations, the denizens of the mental domain are mostly thoughts, judgments, conceptualizations. Thoughts may be about anything possible. They may be about the past, the future, or the present. They may be about imaginary objects or perceptual objects. They may be about temporal or non-temporal objects. In addition to sensations and thoughts, minds may include what we may call partial thoughts. In other words, bits of whole thoughts, such as isolated names. From a logical point of view, a partial thought, for example, mu or om, could be represented by, say, numerals, for example, 1, 2, 3, and so on, blank spaces, constants, for example, A, B, C, and so on, or variables such as x, where x is a variable that stands for a partial thought. By way of contrast, whole thoughts have logical forms such as X is Y, or X is F, where F stands for equality, or X is an F, where F stands for a class or set, that are used to refer to judgments with truth values. When we're experiencing emotions, we entertain thoughts such as, I'm angry at my neighbor for failing to return my lawnmower when he promised he would. Consider any thought. Does it experience its own thoughtness? Do memories, for example, understand themselves to be memories that instantiate memoryness? Does a fantasy take itself to exhibit fancifulness? It's false that minds experience themselves. Again, as Meinung noted, minds are always and only aware of other things, forms, objects. If so, although minds experience emotions, they don't experience themselves as experiencing emotions. That's the role of consciousness. It's a larger, more diffuse energy field. It itself is formless and unbounded. It has no location. It's what makes the experience of emotions and the other contents of mind possible. Quote, it is only because of consciousness itself that we are aware of what is going on in mind. And it is because of mind that we are aware of what is going on with sensations. Because of sensations, we are aware of what is going on with the physical body, end quote. From Healing and Recovery by David R. Hawkins, MD, PhD. It's important to distinguish particulars, individuals, and qualities. In video number 80, I argue that qualities are universals, that, in other words, forms such as redness and rectangularity and so on are commonalities, universal qualities, which are necessary existence. Is the understanding of consciousness just discussed more like a particular or individual thing, or more like a universal quality? Well, could two or more particulars be conscious? Yes, you and I are both conscious. We both instantiate or exemplify the universal quality consciousness. So, it seems that consciousness is not a particular or individual. There's nothing personal about it, any more than there's anything personal about redness or rectangularity. If so, thinking carefully about how we are aware of emotions can lead us to a very revealing answer to the question, what am I? Am I a what or a who? Perhaps ultimately, I'm a what rather than a who. Perhaps after all, it's really true that unless we identify with something else, nothing is personal. I am consciousness. You too are consciousness. Everyone is a different instance of consciousness. Consciousness itself is a necessary existent, like other universal qualities. If so, identifying with consciousness itself is identifying with a necessary existent. Other labels for consciousness include being, life, presence, the divine, and God. In that sense, then, we are God in disguise. Let's end emotional distress.